This story takes place in a small town in India, a village that is not very developed, a place with no electricity, and no mobile phones. Back in the day, my grandpa used to go to the nearby town from his village for various purposes, leaving early in the morning, and returning by night. The town was about 15 kilometers from the village, and then, the rural areas were not much electrified. Through the outskirts and the fields, it got difficult to see the path and reach the village after it got dark. Being a relatively rich man, he had helped many fellow villagers. One such person was Krishna, a farmer, who owed a huge debt to my grandpa. Grandpa had lent him a large sum of money for the marriage of his only daughter, and at a time of dire need. As such, he respected and revered my grandpa with a lot of gratitude. One day, Grandpa got very, very late while coming back. He couldn't see the road and lost his way. It being the rainy season, he was finding it difficult to reach the village through the puddles. After toying with the dark for a while, Grandpa was getting very worried, when a familiar voice called him from behind. It was Krishna, with a lamp in his hand. Krishna immediately told Grandpa to start walking, as he used the lamp from behind to show the path. He strictly told Grandpa not to look back. Not giving it much thought, Grandpa started walking. Throughout the path, he conversed with Krishna, asking how his daughter was doing, and how his crops were coming around. They discussed the roads, the rains, and the village, and not once did my grandpa look back. Soon, they arrived at the brink of the houses. Krishna left, saying he couldn't go any further inside, as he had someplace else to go. Grandpa went on by himself, and kept walking until he observed an assembly of people standing, discussing something. When they told him what they were discussing about, Grandpa froze. Krishna had passed away that day. It wasn't someone who had shown him the path. It was something. Krishna had returned from death, to acknowledge his debt, and provide help to Grandpa when he needed it. This is the story of when I was in class 10th. We were living on rent, and another family was also living on rent with us, separately. Our landlord was living with his children after the death of his wife. But he would definitely come home once a day to check his house. His wife had died many years ago due to some infection. We heard that after that, the renters didn't stay for long. This house was her first house, and she had loved it very much. A little horror thing happened with us from the beginning, but we didn't think much about it. This all started in 2010 when we took my grandfather, my dad's father, from our hometown to stay with us. Because he was getting aged and couldn't take care of himself anymore. Things started deteriorating slowly. At first, everything was fine for a few days. But then, my grandfather started shouting at night, looking at some corner, like someone was standing there. Continuously screaming, "Go away. I am not going with you. Go away." It all started from here. And then his health began to decline. Another incident happened when the other renter always turned off the water supply valve of our water tank. She did this to reduce the electricity bill or something related. We never understood why she did this. So my mother would wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. to fill the tank, which was installed on the roof of the house. One day, my mother woke up at 4 a.m. and began her work to fill the tank. That's when she saw a shadow and didn't know if it was her imagination or not. She checked the shadow by moving her hand, but that shadow still showed no movement. She got scared and started coming down the stairs. In her panic, she fell on her knees. Some toenails even came out. She was bleeding, but she forgot about her injuries. She kept screaming that someone pushed her. She felt it. Someone pushed her. She was a non-believer in ghosts at that time. I could see the fear in her eyes. We took her to the hospital and got the necessary treatment. After a few days, the old renter moved out, and a new doctor couple came in their place. They once told us they were trying to conceive but had failed many times. That was when my grandfather's health was very bad. He had been admitted to the ICU. The doctors said he was stable now and would be discharged in a few days. That night, my mother dreamed that our landlord's wife was holding my grandfather in her lap. She turned towards my mother and gave a creepy smile. Just 2 hours later, she got a call from the hospital. My grandfather was no more. After that, my health began to deteriorate as well, typhoid, then allergies. Going to the hospital became like my routine. One night, the doctor lady dreamed about our landlord's wife. In her dream, the landlord's wife had peed on the bed, and the doctor lady was cleaning it up. Suddenly, the landlord's wife said, "You're going to be a mother soon." The next day, she came to us and told my mother about the dream she had the night before and how the woman looked. The surprising part was, she had never seen our landlord's wife, not even in pictures. My mother was shocked because of how accurately she described her. My mother and the doctor lady talked to our landlord uncle and suggested he get a puja performed. A ritual in honor of the gods. They felt it was necessary to help the landlord's wife's soul rest in peace. The uncle organized a huge puja and donated a lot. After that, we remained there for 6 months. And we didn't encounter any such things. A week after the puja was done, the doctor lady did her test. She was pregnant. Today, she is the mother of a cute teenage girl. Last month, our landlord uncle also died due to age. To this day, my mother and I still think about it. And we try to understand. Was it true? Or were these just things that were supposed to happen? This is about when I was 15 years old. And I was enjoying my school days. My father, being in the construction business, had a construction site going on. We used to visit the place on weekends with Papa. It was a random Sunday in August. We had been with Papa to the construction site. There was a lake nearby, so we spent our day near the lake, enjoying the view. We came back home and had dinner outside. The next day, I was down with a high fever and was unable to attend school. This continued for 3 to 4 days. But the fever wouldn't go down, and the medicines weren't working. Later, after 3 to 4 days, would be fine during the day. But as it started to get dark, I would get feverish again. By midnight, I would be burning with fever, and no medicine seemed to help. Severe body pain began, and leg pain became unbearable. This continued for around 15 days. My parents started to get worried as all my blood reports were normal. But my health was not getting better. In fact, day by day, I was becoming weaker. One day, while I was sleeping, I suddenly started crying in my sleep. Hearing my cries, my mother ran to me, asking what was wrong. But I was still asleep. What was shocking was that I spoke in Kannada, a language I didn't understand at all. My mother called my father and asked him to come home immediately. This started happening every day. My parents didn't understand what I was saying. They were afraid to share with others, thinking about what people would say. But one day, our watchman uncle heard the shouts and came to check if everything was fine. Luckily, he was the one who understood the language. With his help, my parents learned it was a spirit speaking in Kannada and that she was seeking help. She was a lady who had been murdered by her labor husband. Just for a bit of money. Because she didn't give him any to drink alcohol. Not only her, but her daughter was also murdered by him. They were buried at the same place where my father's construction work was going on. After listening to her whole story, my parents, the watchman uncle, and his wife asked her what she wanted and why she was troubling me. She said, "I will leave her. All I want is for you to remove my and my daughter's buried bodies from there. Give them proper agni and complete all the required rituals. Also feed and give a Kumari Kanya. All the things we give to a soon-to-be married daughter. Because being a mother, I had a dream of getting my daughter married." My father immediately agreed to everything. But he asked her to leave me alone and not to trouble me again. He would need some time to do all the things she requested. She said, "I never wanted to hurt anyone. But my soul is not at peace. I didn't have any other way." From that day onward, I started recovering. But I was still afraid of staying alone or going out alone. Days passed, and due to work overload, my father forgot that he had promised the soul to do the things. One day, while coming home from school, I met with an accident. It wasn't a major accident, but it was a wake-up call. And again, she came. This time, it was quite dangerous, as she was not speaking politely but was furious. Right then, my father and the watchman uncle went to the site and did all the required things. They found the bodies in the same place she mentioned. But they were skeletons. My father and the uncle gave them a proper Agni Sanskar, fed a small girl, and provided her with clothes and other accessories. It was late evening by the time they returned. They asked about my health, and she spoke, saying, "Thank you for setting me free. My soul will be at peace." That was the last day she spoke. All this happened, but I never remembered. My parents told me everything later, what all happened, how I used to speak, and cry loudly. Today, even after years, we donate clothes and food to poor girls every year. I know she didn't ask us to do this every year, but it has become mandatory for my father. He does it without fail.